The World Economic Forum kicked off this week in Davos, Switzerland, but the conference clearly feeling the shadow of President Trump amid his push to acquire Greenland.
Now, President Trump kicked off his speech earlier this morning by criticizing Europe. Take a listen to a little bit of what he had to say.
Friends come back from different places. I don't want to insult anybody and say I don't recognize it. And that's not in a positive way. That's in a very negative way. And I love Europe, and I want to see Europe go good, but it's not heading in the right direction.
Meantime, French President Emmanuel Macron began his remarks yesterday by making a subtle dig at the U.S. president, but quickly shifted to a much darker tone. Let's take a listen.
And it's a time of peace, stability, and predictability. A shift towards autocracy against democracy, more violence, more than 60 wars in 2024, an absolute record, even if I understood a few of them were fixed. A shift towards a world without rules, where international law is trampled underfoot, and where the only law that seems to matter is that of the strongest, and imperial ambitions are resurfacing.
Now, Macron went on to list the Russia-Ukraine conflict as well as the conflict in the Middle East as examples of those imperial ambitions. But some critics are saying he was also referencing Trump.
And I believe he had something wrong with his eye, which is why he was wearing those glasses, which was kind of a cool look.
I thought he looked super cool.
Yeah, people made fun of him online for that, though. The French and American presidents, meanwhile, have been on the rocks recently after Macron refused to join Trump's Board of Peace. Trump also leaked a private message from the French president ahead of the two meeting in Davos. It reads in part, "My friend, we are totally in line on Syria. We can do great things on Iran. I do not understand what you are doing on Greenland. Let us try to build great things."
That confusion seems to be how many European leaders feel right now. Yesterday, Trump trolled the continent with this AI-generated photo of him planting a flag on Greenland. His consistent pressure to take over the Arctic island is prompting some across the pond to urge less reliance on the United States. EU Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen yesterday called for permanent independence from the U.S., vowing to be, quote, unflinching in the face of Trump's push for Greenland.
Planting that flag.
Yeah.
Manifest destiny. It shall be ours, Lindsey.
This is like so antagonistic to watch what's happening in Davos at this economic forum, where usually our allies, particularly the ones in NATO, like Greenland, are all on the same page and going there to talk about how the world's economies can work better together. But instead, they're throwing shade at President Trump because he is making them feel like a need to put militarized, full gear people on the ground in Greenland to protect the country from being taken over like this is imperial times by the president, who's just like, well, my way or the highway. And he is threatening these countries with tariffs already. He's saying like 10% tariff just because you guys are pushing back against me and not agreeing with my plan, or making people join his Gaza peace plan, which a lot of countries don't think that they align with.
Why don't they want to enjoy the
because he wants to charge each
plan.
country, like Mark Carney in Canada was like, heck no. He wants an agreement for a long-term $1 billion commitment. Maybe some countries don't want to commit that financially. You can understand.
So we got to we got to pay all the money to rebuild Gaza?
We were Israel's biggest ally in destroying Gaza. I mean, we funded it wholeheartedly. So I would say we paid more of a portion than the rest of the countries. Wouldn't you say that since we funded it, or you forgot that part that we helped?
I didn't want to fund it.
That?
Well, I didn't want to.
Well,
fund
here
it
we are.
place.
Here we are. So should we not? Should we leave it demolished? Some of these European leaders...
I wouldn't. To be clear, I would not have demolished it in the first place. Very much so. I do not like paying to blow things up and then paying to rebuild them. I don't like it to be all on America. You know what? We can't work out the Middle East. We've been trying for a long time, and it doesn't want to be worked out. They don't want our help. We're not helping. Let's just sit. Let's actually resign from this Board of Peace and let Europe take a crack at it. I'm sick of it. I don't want to be involved anymore.
I think the bigger point is the fact that the president is threatening people that don't behave accordingly and don't act accordingly. So France is saying don't attack an ally. You already have the opportunity to put boots on the ground in Greenland. You have an agreement that's existed since the 50s, the 1950s, to be able to access that space for military operations if you need to. Why do you need to own the place when they have vehemently said we're not interested? I think there's European leaders just trying to stand up saying the U.S. can't bully you around.
Is the U.S.'s position.
But why is this coming up right now? The president just wants to take over wherever he wants to. No, it just is not acceptable. I mean, give me a thorough explanation about why this is so important right now. He's saying ships are surrounding
Trump doesn't
Greenland.
recognize
They're
the
not.
sovereignty of the tiny European island of Denmark over this giant landmass proximate to the American continent.
So are we not acknowledging that he also
Just
sent
as
a message about him not getting the Nobel Peace Prize, and that's part of the reason?
Just as England once laid claim to a vast swath of this continent, that we rebelled against them and cast off their leadership and said we will govern ourselves. Similar things done to France and Spain and Portugal. Similarly, why should Denmark rule this distant landmass? That is what Trump is asking.
And Trump
it's
is
a question
saying,
that generations of Americans have asked about European leadership and interference in our affairs. We've said no. We've said this land is our land.
Trump's response for why we're doing this, we saw in a message that says, well, if he would have gave me the Nobel Peace Prize, perhaps I wouldn't be going down this route. And I'm paraphrasing, but he's saying, well, peace is not, the U.S. is my number one priority now because he didn't get the Peace Prize.
The U.S. should have been the number one priority all
Well,
along.
his priorities change when it benefits him personally. We know that already, right? That's obvious. And so the fact that you think this now is a good time because the U.S. is now a priority for the president as opposed to him getting a Nobel Peace Prize and accusing the entire area as the reason why he didn't get the Peace Prize is inappropriate. And so if we're only going after this nation because we need this ultimate protection and we already have access to put soldiers there, and now he didn't get a Peace Prize and we're immediately having this knee-jerk reaction, that's not a good leadership. And so Europe should call that out. That's what Governor Gavin Newsom said when he was down there.
Gavin Newsom's
invited
on the side
himself
of
to
Europe.
Davos.
He's on the side of Europe.
He agrees that people should stand up. European
Him
nations should
and
stand up
Alex
against Trump.
Soros, who I saw he took a picture of with George Soros' is it son or grandson? The successor, the heir to the Soros throne. Yeah, so that's nice. He wants to align against Americans and with Europeans. What a interesting strategic
I don't think he's aligning against Americans. I think he's saying what Trump is doing is un-American, and so people should align against what the president is trying to do.
Wanting Greenland to be part of America
because he didn't get a Nobel Peace Prize. Yes, because they're an ally and they're a NATO member, and we can go put boots on the ground if we need to protect ourselves. Like something that Amber brought up is that our facilities there are a little decrepit and they need some remodeling. We can invest resources into remodeling some places or stations where soldiers would be and protect ourselves to the most thorough level, but we don't need to own the place.
Well, maybe the Danes can pay for it then, and we'll just
Send
we'll
them the
just
bill?
hang out.
Well, we're just collecting money from everybody because Trump says so, and that's what he wants to do.
Next up, French wines could not get costlier they could get costlier. We thought they couldn't get costlier. They can. President Trump is threatening a 200% tariff on French wine after Macron reportedly rejected being part of the Gaza peace accord. Don't go anywhere.